Thank you, journalists, for joining us this morning. And Tom, please go ahead.
Thank you for joining us today, and to everyone, happy International Women's Day. Later today, I'll be tabling an important bill to bring real consumer protection here in Ontario. It's called the Ontario Consumer Watchdog Act. All the time, news stories are reported on showing consumers being taken advantage of. A couple stuck with a $20,000 repair bill after a delivery driver damaged the door of their condo's parking garage. A senior tricked into signing a multi-year contract for HVAC equipment costing tens of thousands of dollars when they thought they were getting a free doorbell. And the list goes on. When consumers get gouged and ripped off, they don't get the protection they deserve. It's the proverbial battle of David versus Goliath. When you go through Consumer Protection Ontario, the most often response you're given is to get a lawyer. Our bill will establish an authority who will stand up for consumers. And a true consumer watchdog that could investigate consumer complaints, table independent reports, and has the teeth to issue fines and take other punitive actions against those who seek to gouge and rip off Ontarians. I'm joined today by my bill co-sponsors and NDP colleagues, Terence Kernaghan, Doly Begum, and Faisal Hassan. I'm also joined by two strong advocates for consumer protection reform, author and former consumer protection columnist for the Toronto Star, the Globe and Mail, Ellen Roseman and Dr. Karen Somerville, Executive Director and President of Canadians for Properly Built Homes. We will now hear from MPP Terence Kernaghan, MPP critic for government services and consumer protection. Terence?
Good morning, everyone, and happy International Women's Day. You know, before I begin, as the critic, I want to give a special thank you and shout outs to my colleague Tom Rakocevic for taking the lead on this incredibly important legislation. Whether you're buying an item or using a service, everyone in Ontario is a customer in some fashion. But the consumer protection system in Ontario is broken. When consumers go up against multi-million-dollar corporations, far too many people are forced to go it alone. With the Ontario Consumer Watchdog Act, we can protect Ontarians from being gouged or ripped off. By creating this watchdog, we would give folks a strong place to go when they've been cheated. This includes when a home builder refuses to honor the warranty on your newly built home, when a payday lender charges you outrageous and illegal interest rates, when you're tricked into signing for outrageously expensive HVAC equipment and a lien gets slapped on your home, or when a company takes your money and runs. I encourage the government to pass our bill today and establish an Ontario Consumer Watchdog and take action to finally protect consumers with legislation that goes beyond empty words. Thank you.
Thank you, Terence. Next up is MPP Doly Begum.
Thank you, Tom. I also want to thank Tom Rakocevic, the MPP for Humber River-Black Creek, for bringing this bill forward and for having us co-sponsor it. This is an important issue that we hear about at the doors all the time, especially when I meet seniors across my riding of Scarborough Southwest as the MPP for Scarborough Southwest. It is one of the most important issues we hear. Many consumers are often confused by the consumer protection process in this province. Depending on their complaint, they may have to go through a number of different places and end up with no solution at all. For most complaints, you would go through Consumer Protection Ontario, but for consumers, this is a process where they don't know how to navigate the process, and most common response they get is to get a lawyer. If you file a consumer complaint against your auto insurance company, for example, you would have to go through the FSRA. If you file a consumer complaint against a motor vehicle dealership, for example, you would go through the OMVIC. If you file a complaint against a home builder regarding deflects in your home newly built, you would have to go through the HCRA, and the list goes on. I know for many seniors, for many immigrant community members that I get to meet, a lot of people don't even know this process. I am so proud to finally have a bill that calls for an Ontario Consumer Watchdog Act, which is a simple process providing consumer that one place to go to file a complaint and have their rights protected. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, MPP Begum. MPP Faisal Hassan.
Thank you. Good morning and happy International Women's Day. My name is Faisal Hassan. I'm the Member Provincial Parliament for the Great Riding of York South-Weston. It is a pleasure to join my colleagues and stakeholders this morning in talking about this important bill to protect and address consumer complaints in Ontario. I have been hearing from so many community members, seniors, students, and families and individuals living with disabilities that are struggling financially and just trying to get by day to day with the increasing cost of living. Price gouging and consumer rip-off is happening far too much to already overburdened people, and they have nowhere to turn. This consumer protection bill will finally provide concrete assistance and place to turn to when consumers have been taken advantage of. This government and the previous Liberal government have turned a blind eye to consumer protection, and it is well past time a bill such as this is passed into law. All consumers deserve protection and the comfort in knowing that they are not alone and will be helped.
Thank you very much, MPP Hassan. And next we're going to hear from Ellen Roseman, former Toronto Star, consumer protection advocacy columnist, author, and host of the Money Saver podcast.
Thanks, Terence and Tom and all the MPPs here. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of consumers and consumer protection. I've spent several decades of my career specializing in this area and advocating for consumers who need help badly. They often don't even know that they have a complaint that's worth pursuing. You know, you have to have a high profile for a government agency that's going to help them out. And the Ontario Consumer Protection Department isn't as high profile as I'd like. And as Tom said, they often just tell you to get a lawyer. So I'd like to see something like this. I was really excited when Justin Trudeau put it in his 2019 campaign platform, but it never happened. And what we need is something that's somewhat independent of government that will report on its findings in a high profile way so people will know what the complaints are, that will name names, and that will help people resolve their problems. I've been doing it for so many years, and I see that the landscape for consumers is worse than it's ever been with so many online scams, the difficulty of discovering who's a legitimate online supplier and who's not, the problem of refunds. You know, Canada's largest airlines have been doing it through the pandemic, not giving refunds for cancellations that they themselves initiated. There's a lot of issues that require a single agency that people will know, that will have a high profile, that will use online and social media to let people know that they should go there and get what they need. Another constituency are insurance consumers. There's a lot of people in Ontario who are in car accidents who find that they can't get any relief unless they hire a lawyer and sue their companies because it's so hard to reach these companies. So that's another thing I'd like to see in this act. I remember a number of years ago, there was an act to stop door-to-door sales, or to restrict door-to-door sales of people who would get water heaters switched. And there were so many people taken in by this. And the Liberal government then didn't want to do it. So an a Liberal MP did it as a private member's bill. And it got unanimous reading in the House, unanimous passage in the House, because every single MPP realized that their constituency offices were just deluged with complaints about this. So I think that would be a good tool for the NDP to exploit, because so many people are just running around trying to help these consumers who have nowhere else to go. And it would be great if they could find this single watchdog. So good luck with that motion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for speaking in support and all of your advocacy on this and all your years of advocacy. Next up is Karen Somerville, President of Canadians for Properly Built Homes.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Tom, and your colleagues in the NDP for introducing this important legislation, Bill 77. On behalf of Canadians for Properly Built Homes, we're pleased to endorse this bill. CPBH, as we're known, we will celebrate our 18th anniversary in May. Can you imagine 18 years of doing this, working for consumers who have invested in the largest purchase most of us will ever make, a newly built home. And far too often they are being ripped off. And it's not just about money, it's also about health and safety, code violations. It's important for people to realize that when a home does not meet the minimal Ontario building code and has code violations, far too often consumers' health is being impacted. So it's about the money, it's about physical health, it's about mental health. So we're very pleased to support this. It's important to recognize that from a newly built home perspective, the so-called consumer protection today in Ontario comes via delegated administrative authorities. And that model simply doesn't work for consumers. It protects industry, whether it's Terrion, the brand new Home Construction Regulatory Authority, which is only a year old and already has many, many problems, or the Electrical Safety Authority. I could go on, but the DAA model does not work to protect consumers. To add insult to injury, the Ontario government collects millions of dollars annually in mandatory oversight fees from these DAAs, but nobody knows where this money goes. So bottom line, we need a consumer watchdog. The current model isn't working, and we are hoping that all MPPs today vote in support of Bill 77. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you for your 18 years of standing up for those who are seeking home warranty protection and not getting it. I know you've been an advocate for so many, and we appreciate that. So we're available to take any questions, so please feel free to ask.
And a reminder to any journalists to please use the raise hand function. So your first question, well, Tom, I'll hand it to you first, is from Antonella Artuso from the Toronto Sun. Antonella, please go ahead.
Good morning. I wanted to ask, does the online world take the place of this? Do customer reviews, Yelp, all these options online, could they take the place of a consumer protection watchdog?
So currently, people have the ability to go online and say what they have to say about a company. Certainly, sometimes you see complaints, sometimes you see people that are in support. You never know where either of those come from. But what we're asking for is a consumer watchdog, a place that has oversight, a place that people will be able to seek transparency and to see what's happening. So if you would be able to access what the consumer watchdog, all the reports they have, you would have full disclosure about businesses. If you're about to enter into a contract or purchase a service, you would be able to see that, but information that's being managed by the consumer watchdog itself, not just being left up to the internet and making a decision based on reading back and forth reviews.
Thank you. Having written about the water heater situation for one elderly woman, the process was extremely long, and at the end there was no satisfaction until the media got involved in the story, which is obviously not practical for everything. So how would this consumer watchdog enforce these kinds of decisions?
Well, so the idea would be that the watchdog would have the ability to generate fines and be able to take punitive action. Right now, just as you said, when it comes to consumer protection in Ontario, we have a list of laws. People are forced to have to go to a lawyer. They often have to settle. They have to spend money to basically defend themselves for their own rights that they should have always had. And usually when you see justice happening in many cases, it's because media have had to get involved and the reporting essentially shames a company into doing the right thing. But that's not where consumers should turn. Having a consumer watchdog helping to bring in laws, stronger laws to protect people, but ultimately issuing fines themselves and punishing these bad actors would send a message and would provide Ontarians the highest level of consumer protection in the entire country.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there are any other questions, just a reminder to journalists to please use the raise hand function. It looks like there are no other questions on the line, so I'll hand it back to you, Tom.
Okay, well, again, I want to thank all of those who have joined. Again, my MPP colleagues and bill co-sponsors, Terence Kernaghan, Doly Begum, and Faisal Hassan, and as well our amazing consumer protection advocates who've spent years fighting these issues. And I'm so pleased to have them in support for real consumer change through the Ontario Consumer Watchdog Act. And those are Ellen Roseman and Somerville. So I want to thank everybody for being here today. And I look forward to tabling the bill. And I'm hoping that the government is going to do the right thing and stand up for consumers in Ontario. It's time.